Hey, let's go.
Hey, welcome to Wednesday night podcast Out Loud, sponsored by On the Path. And we are really fired up to have Adamsen. I can read a lot of things, and I will a little bit, but the truth of the matter is he's a top-notch influencer leader in all aspects of building people into better human beings and leaders and employees and fathers and sons and all those good things that we all kind of take for granted, except in our own little worlds and our jobs. But Al is an expert. Al is a guy that we've been trying to get him on for about 6 months now. We've got all kinds of, he's a very busy man. He is the owner and operator of PAFOW, and it's people for people. Say it, Al.
People analytics and future of work.
All right, and has been involved in the HR game for over 25 years, and is in the top 10 of. Tell me a little bit about that and how that all came about, Al.
Well, I'm an accidental tourist, and that means that I just kind of ended up here, and I wanted to make a positive impact in the world. I went to Cerritos Junior College after St. Paul High School, and I wanted to play Pac-10 football. That was pre-Pac-12s, and it became very clear to me at one point that I needed to think about the longer term. And so, long story short, ended up going to UC Davis to play football, study engineering, and then go off and fly planes in the Marine Corps.
Wow.
So I went to officer candidate school in the summer of '88 and decided that I don't want to do that. And that was a difficult interaction I had with my father, who's a former Marine police officer. And I studied instead economics because I wanted.
What was that moment like? I'm sorry to interrupt. What was that moment like, Al? What was that?
Well, yeah, I remember. It was at the diner right by Whitwood Mall. I want to say Cicero's. No, it's not Cicero's. So, yeah. Anyway, I could point to the table. I know where he was sitting. I know where I was sitting. And I said it and felt like a lead balloon. And there was heavy weight and staring off in the distance and, awkward silence and all that. And there was disappointment, and, I let him, process it. But it was the first time that I really recall, taking ownership of my life and saying, this is what I want to do. And what I wanted to do is understand how the world worked and make it a better place. And so I studied economics. And just to finish that first question, I just really wanted to see how I could not only, like, in this esoteric big thing, make the world a better place, but how I could affect people's lives given what I saw as people suffering, people in pain. And even back then, even though it wasn't called inequality as much as it is today, I just knew in my own circle of friends and family that, hey, there was some inequitable opportunity, inequitable resources, and economics was my path to understand, why are people poor? Why are people rich? And is there something that, we can do about it to improve the plight of people and create greater equity? Not to become, just to be clear, if someone's listening and go, man, Al seemed cool, but he's a communist. No, I'm not. It's not that.
I was going to say altruistic.
It's just altruistic in thinking about how we can do better by one another. If we're truly our brothers.
What was a moment at a young age?
Let's do that.
What was a moment at a young age when you, what was the thought process? Thought sounds fully developed. What were you thinking as a young guy? Were you that compelled, or was there other things that you had seen specifically that made you start to think that way?
It's a great question. So I'll answer it in two ways. Was it that evolved? You're absolutely right. That it was not that evolved of a thought at the time. I just saw a couple things. First off, I did not like my experience at Officers Candidate School. And I'll say this frankly,
Gotcha.
30 plus years on, is that I was underwhelmed by the situation that I saw in terms of how, and granted it's the Marine Corps, so there's a certain need to be a certain disposition, but I wanted to be around those who are curious and ability to learn. And I mean, I was juiced at the athletic aspect of it, you know, which I'll crawl through mud all day and, you know, climb ropes and stuff like that. And yeah, when we actually got to talk about values and why, you know, there was a lot of, hey, I want to carry a gun, I want to shoot people. I'm like, hey, well, that ain't me. Right. You know, I'm a peacemaker. I want to do right by people. And again, I don't want to imply that each and every guy that I experienced there was like that, because it wasn't the case. But I just had a really hard decision to make, that, you know, who do I want to hang out with? You know, who do I want to be around? Which is actually, as I coach and advise young people, I'm like, that, you know, who do you want to be your tribe when you're thinking about your major or your career and things like that. So that's what I wanted to retreat from. That's what I learned at that stage of life that I did not want to do. In terms of what I did want to do, I was, you know, again, just, you know, where we lived and grew up, you know, there's Friendly Hills where, you know, there are big houses and, you know, people had driveways and nice cars. And then there was, you know, South Whittier, and there was Pico, and it was a very different existence, you know, between La Mirada and all these, and it was diverse. And particularly when I looked at my experience at Cerritos, and I'm like, this is crazy. This, you know, how does this, you know, work? And not to say that I want everyone living in the same houses, but I really want to understand how I'm going to navigate this world and how I can help others navigate this world. So at that point, it wasn't like I'm going to choose a career in human resources and people analytics. It was really, I want to be curious about how the world works and see where that takes me. And that led me into management consulting. That led me into being an entrepreneur in the former Soviet Union. That led me into innovating in a discipline that has now become very prominent, that being people analytics. So yeah, I was not evolved, you know, so if you're a young person listening, I didn't have it all figured out. I was just taking steps in a direction that I thought was going to be appropriate given my, you know, my calling. And, you know, it was really, one more thing I'll slip in, is really about learning about myself and listening to how I felt about things, you know, what my thoughts were, processing it with peers. And, you know, that was invaluable at that time.
Yeah. Did you find like-minded people to interact with early on, or was it kind of a journey of finding those mentors and those people that you respected in that kind of a vein?
Well, yeah, I gotta say, you know, when we started, you know, when you invited me, when we explored doing this podcast together, I was like, what are we going to talk about? And you know, I have the great fortune of doing my own podcast, and I'm interviewed from time to time. But you know, the questions that you're asking are appropriately deep, and they're appropriate for, I think, others to hear, to navigate their journey. So thank you for that.
Sure.
I will say this, is that I am extraordinarily blessed, serendipitously, circumstantially, to have had great peers help me go through life and make good decisions. And frankly, when I made poor decisions or suboptimal decisions, to be there to hold a space to help me process and find a better way forward. David Ortega is someone that you two know, who is similarly altruistic, who has a similar background, and somebody who, you know, as I, at that age, aspired to be a top level football player, who looked at his experience. We talked about, you know, his peers, and like, it made me recalibrate. Is that something that I really want to do at this stage, or ever? And it was, hey, Al, you know, if you want to do, you know, good in the world, how about just doing that, as opposed to, doing what your peers in high school, think you should do because you were a good athlete. And, that, not to say that that was that pointed of a discussion, but
no,
certainly,
it's interesting though. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, but he and Rick Castillo, Albert Sines, a lot of my, best buds from high school were instrumental. Rick and I went to Cerritos together. So he became a father his freshman year. So watching, and I was actually there when Brittany, my goddaughter, was born. We're 18 years old. All of a sudden, my best bud here has a kid. And so the heightened level of seriousness is like, hey, we're not just playing a game here. And he actually got several offers and ended up going to the University of Cincinnati, ended up leaving to come back to be close to his daughter and mother of her child. And they still have a great relationship today. And I will say this about Rick: beautiful human being, was in college, scholarship, went to San Diego State, dropped out, said bye to everything, got a job, never, ever missed a child support payment. He was there. He was a bedrock there each and every time for birthdays and stuff. And Missy, the mom, would say this. And so I saw that. I was part of that. I was part of his support system at that time. And so it elevated my level of seriousness too. It's like, oh, hey, this is not, we ain't kids anymore. We have to move forward. So again, he was an inspiration to me in that regard as well.
Amazing. Yeah, that's I think going backwards. I want you to finish the thought with your father, then telling him that this was the move that you were going to make, and how did that play out?
Well, to back up even further, I'm adopted. So and my sister Alicia is also adopted, and we've known as long as we can remember. So I call that out in this respect, is that here's this dude who, he's my dad. He's raised me since I was 4 months old, since he and my mom got me. He was not in the house since I was about 12. So my parents split about that time, and I lived with my mom full time and saw him every other weekend or so. So, there had been a separation of sorts. And now, as a father of two, a 20-year-old boy and 18-year-old girl, it's the case where I've heard this from a Hawaiian grandmother, albeit through a friend, is that and this is debatable and there's nuances here, but we actually arguably stop parenting, around 13, 14 years old. And again, we'll never stop being a parent. But the theme there is that the ability of parents to influence their kids in a formative way, it shifts significantly around that age. Now they're entering high school, they're getting rides with people. I remember when our son got a car because his grandmother passed, and our whole relationship changed. So taking rides to school, wasn't there. So going back to the question about my father, he wasn't there for those times. And he wasn't, give me rides to school, but, once in a blue moon. So when I told him, there was a distance, and did I care how he felt, and did I care how he thought? Absolutely, yes. I love my dad. However, I wasn't putting my self-worth and how I identified myself around his expectations, his feelings of me. And in retrospect, given who he is, it was a pretty kind of bold move, if I do say so myself. But it was one that I had to make.
Yeah, probably a better man for it, just the process, And I'm interested to know then, who were your other influences growing up, male and female influences?
It's Steve Jobs said in a Stanford commencement that you can't connect the dots, looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking back. And for all the issues I have with Steve Jobs, I like that, sentiment, because, there was a lot of noise at that juncture of my life. I went to UC Davis, and Ted Prenoveau, Steve Kennedy, there was a couple other, really close friends that I didn't mention. And Ted and I were at the beach after my freshman year of college, and I had already committed to play football at UC Davis. And we were in the water, and you go, "Al, you ain't that fast." And I'm like, "Don't even play." So I said, "I'll race you." And so we're racing on the beach, which just having that image of Ted and I running bare chested next to each other is just not a good one. So I'm trying to get it out of my head. But I'm like in second gear, and I'm going to go third gear, and I'm just about to blow him away. And right hammy pulls, just yanked. Like I had never pulled my hamstring before, but it's just, I got out of cold water, and all of a sudden I'm sprinting, without any, so I say that because, I'm laid up for 4 weeks or so, and I go,
and that hurts.
Well, it hurts. I can't train. So I go to football camp. I'm supposed to be this fast, athletic guy, and I don't, I run a poorest 40 I can ever remember, don't do well in the agility drills, don't want to tell the coaches, I'm a knucklehead. And so second week of camp, I break my foot. So I pulled my hamstring. Now I broke my foot, and sidebar, the school lost my application, so they don't even think I'm in school. So I have to reapply. They have some information, but not. So I don't have any of my classes. So I have a broken foot, healed hamstring, trying to get my classes.
Challenges of all the common man all over the place.
And I'm just, so it's night before school register for classes. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Don't have any counselor, hadn't gone to orientation or anything. So I drink, I go, and there's a whole story there, which I'm not going to go into too much detail to protect the innocent.
Suffice it to say.
Yeah, but I went there, and I got my classes, and I really, really struggled. I struggled, and now I'm at a UC school, and I don't really have my football tribe. I'm going to the meetings and showing up, and I'm trying to do the right thing. And I'm not really getting a connection with guys because I'm not really the teammate. I'm kind of like, I don't know. I don't even know what I am, but I don't even know I'm a football player anymore. So there's identity, crisis going on. So I heal up, don't play at all that season. And then I play basketball, intramural basketball, and I'm a decent basketball player. So, I play intramurals at the highest level, join a team that I don't know, do well. We go to the championship and lose. I remember that because it was really a great game, and it was just fun. But now I start developing relationships, start developing connections. So fast forward, I play City League basketball, and one of the guys on the other team is Mike Morosky. Mike Morosky, you might recognize the name as a former quarterback at Atlanta Falcons and San Francisco 49ers, Davis grad. Right. And so he and I connect. He's a phenomenal athlete, phenomenal human being. And he goes, "Al, I'd like you to coach with me. And, I understand you've had some challenges with your football experience, but, I want you to coach with me." And so I ended up coaching with him. And it was one of the most healing experiences at that time. And I'll just share what he said. And I skipped actually, a little part in here, which we, might come back to, but it's most important, I think, to share this. Is on a bus ride, he said, "Al, I was lucky. I was the right place, right time. I had the right coaches around me. it worked out for me. It didn't work out for you. And you're a great athlete. And I'm like, I'm 21 at the time. And I had this former professional football player call me a great athlete. I mean, you just say anything, I'll wash your windows in your house. You just made my life right now. And so, that was a big, big deal for me. And I processed that. And I said, you know what, it is. And now looking back in life as a 53-year-old man, he's absolutely right. How many great athletes do we all know who could have gone to the next level, but it just didn't work out for them for health reasons, for circumstantially. Rick is another example. I mean, if he had not had a kid, he could have played at a high level. He's junior college All-American, but he made a choice, and he's not lesser for it. In fact, the way he handled everything, I think, is hugely admirable, and I, love and respect him for it.
Did you feel like things were coming at you, or did you feel like things were in order and you were building something?
Oh God, no! I was chaos. Yeah, I'll say this because this isn't going to get released. But so my daughter, our daughter, because my daughter has a mother, and I get called out. I say our daughter, and it'd be my daughter and I sitting at the table. Go, you have to say my daughter, and I go, no, but your mom is dissing your mom. I gotta say our. So anyway, our daughter, she was valedictorian, and she got what's called the superintendent's award. So the highest cumulative GPA over her 4 years at school, a 4.48.
Congratulations, that's pretty sweet.
And she's been on this planet before, man. She's super evolved human being. She is kind. She's great work ethic. She's a grinder, and obviously she's talented cognitively, but she's like really emotionally intelligent. She's my daughter, so I'm a little biased here, but
that's off to you.
So, well, I don't know, and maybe in spite, but here's the thing. She wanted to go to Northwestern. And she went to a volleyball camp, but she was the one who did the volleyball camp in the summer of 2019. And she saw the campus and she wanted it. If she had a vision board, Northwestern would have been all over it. And it was one of her drivers. It was her goal. And COVID hits, she can't take the SAT. Universities around the country saying, well, if you have the SAT, if you have SAT scores, you can submit them, but we're not going to look at it. And it's like, what the hell's that mean? So then you have parents shipping their kids to Nevada and other places to take the SAT. And we're like, we ain't doing that. So now, did we make a mistake as parents or whatever? So she doesn't get in to Northwestern, massive disappointment. She doesn't get into MIT or Columbia, and the acceptance rates are like 4.5%, 3.6%. They're absurd. It's like winning the lottery. I actually wrote a blog post about it. But here's what I want to get in response to your question about figuring it out. She got into several great schools, among them UC San Diego, which she wants to study biochem. So it's a biotech hub. It's a fantastic school. She just informed me the other day she doesn't want to go. She's not feeling it. She has scholarships that she's going to turn down. She's going to, and her mom and I said, that's great. And suffice it to say, and I do not know your parents, Tom and Chuck, what they would have said, at that time, but I know what mine would have said. And, sure. There would have been a lot of guilt. There would have been a lot of, prodding, if not, damn near threats to get your ass.
Just fear, just overwhelming fear.
But the thing is, did I have stuff coming at me? Oh God. I was like, why am I here? I do not know why I'm here. I'm here for others. I'm doing what I should be doing. And who owns the should? Is it my peer group? Is it my parents? Is it society? And it wasn't until I started slowing all that stuff down that I really, truly found my calling. And that frankly was still 10 years on. And so if my daughter is going to have more fortitude and wisdom to slow that stuff coming down and say, hey, I need some time to figure stuff out at my pace, then, get on you, girl. That's, and I want to support her. And her mom wants to support her. So yeah, long-winded response to your question, I had stuff coming at me left and right. I was going freaking nuts. I did not do well in school. First quarter, as I mentioned, I was thinking about dropping out. I was wondering if I was going to be able to stay. I was wondering if I was worthy of staying. I was wondering if I was smart enough. I didn't have enough money. I stuff coming at me way too fast, way out of control. If I didn't have a good peer group that emerged at that time, Ben Campbell, Luke Kreinberg, guys that both from Berkeley, and they opened my eyes to kind of a different way of being. May I tell a quick story on that?
I hope so.
So we all grew up in an area that we're in cars most of the time, and we get to a destination, and we played football. There's an element of roughness to it, and I'm kind of putting a lot of sugar on the cookie right now. So
you haven't heard our podcast, obviously.
All right. I'll just tell the story, then we can back into that later.
Absolutely.
First day I go to Davis. I went to Davis sight unseen and went there to play football, put my stuff in this apartment at Laterne Sol on this across a road called 113. It's about 1.5 miles from campus. And there's a bike path that runs parallel to this road called Russell Boulevard. And so I'm walking on this bike path and just, never been looking around. And I see this bicyclist coming, and he catch eyes and he says, hi. And I was like, what the fuck that dude just say to me? I was like,
talking to me?
I was like, does he want my wallet? I was like, what did he just talk to me? I was like really taken back by it. And I remember like having this defense, he saw me, and I was like, I was processing this on the remainder of the walk. And I looked around and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am in a different place. I need to act in a different way. And I was struggling a lot. And let me tell you, that night, I go to a football party. There was a keg on the deck. It's, I don't know what time, it's not very late, but I'm pouring myself a beer, through the keg. Guy pulls the tap out of my hand. So I shove him because he pulled the tap out of my hand. Now, Ted is there. Ted was there the year before. He was there freshman year. He knows these guys, but I was so wound up, and I was so in my kind of home life paradigm that I wasn't prepared to deal with people who were unkind, that were older than me, that thought they had some influence over me because they didn't know me. I'm a receiver guy, I'm their linebacker, O-line guys. But I was just, to answer your question, Chuck, stuff was coming at me so fast, and I did not have the wisdom and resources to take care of myself. A few days later, this is with the hamstring. A few days later, I break my foot. So yeah, I was not okay at that time.
Were you appalled by the boorishness of those guys, or were you just angry coming in?
No, it's I was more and there are circumstances more currently that relate to how I'm going to respond to this. And again, it's 30 years on, and it's a wise man looking back at a kid. Safety is a really important, it's a critical human construct, physical, psychological, and emotional safety. And I wanted to enter a place where I felt safe. And that bike incident was like, oh, you know what? I can be safe here. I'm walking. That's something I didn't do at home, really, unless I wanted to take some big risks and, walk through a neighborhood that I didn't want to, or stuff like that. It's like, so now I'm walking and like, this is cool. It's nice. And all of a sudden I start to feel comfortable and safe. And now somebody violates my space, violates my manliness, and I'm talking about 18-year-old manliness. I'm not talking about,
right.
Truly it is to be a man. But it was, I was not prepared emotionally, psychologically to deal with those, to diffuse those types of instances at that point in time. I didn't have the mechanism, didn't have the practice, didn't have the mentorship.
And now a word from the content creator. We wanted to thank you for supporting us by watching our videos. We would like to ask for one more bit of support. We cannot continue without subscribers. We are searching for sponsors, but we need to prove their business will be seen. If you get any value in our videos, please consider subscribing. For those of you super fans who have already subscribed, please hit the like and leave a comment. We need those thumbs up to get the video to new folks. We need the comments to point us in the direction that will interest you. You've been with us from the start. We are in your debt. And if we don't get any sponsors, we are going to be in debt. Peace and love, Chuck and Tommy G. www.outloudpod.com.
Where did you hit a point where you went ding and you went, oh wow, this is how I get out of this. This is where I go. What was the evolution of your next move?
Oh, well, that's going to jump a couple decades.
Okay, well let's go. Just was there chaos for that long in your mind?
I'll give you and your listeners a broad swath on that. So I graduated from UC Davis, and I was painting houses for a while and laying tile, and with the degree, and I finally got a job at Ernst & Young in San Francisco. I was living in Berkeley at the time, and
Oh boy.
I just laugh. Because I want to make this entertaining and I want to make it substantive. And if there's many in my life said, Al, man, we need a whiteboard for your life. And I think that's true of many people, because I lived in Washington, D.C. I went to Sweden and played basketball. I come home, I work on my uncle's mayor's campaign because he's running for mayor of Las Vegas. So I'm hanging out in Las Vegas for a bit. And then I go lay tile and paint houses. And then I get the job with Ernst & Young, which then takes me to Russia. So in November of '94, all of a sudden I'm in Moscow, Russia.
Wow.
And so, the reason I segue to that is now I'm in, a place, think about the confrontations. I'm walking through Moscow, Russia, and I can't be shoving people when they take the tap out. I don't have my posse there, and even if I did, it ain't appropriate on any number of levels.
Wow.
And so, in terms of how I take care of myself, that and how I take care of others, it started to elevate in seriousness, and I'll come back to that. But I want to get to this point because after 5 years in Russia, and I'm skipping some stuff because it'll distract and you'll ask me to focus on it, and I'm not going to do it yet. because it was traumatic.
Right.
It was traumatic. So I come back to the U.S. and I expect people to be nice. I expect the world to work. I expect it to not be traumatic. And it's not that way. You know, people are cutting me off. People are doing this. And so on November 16th, 1999, on a trip home from Russia, I meet Susie Clark. Susie Clark is the mom of Cash, my son, and Ava, our daughter. And so I come back January of 2000, and our son is born November of that year. So you can, suffice to say, doing the math, we didn't have much long courtship. We didn't have long courtship.
Right.
But I made a commitment to her. She lives a mile and a half down. We've raised 2 wonderful kids. Couldn't be more blessed.
Awesome.
So I am now there, .com bust, and I am feeling that I got a kid on the way. I got to step up my game, and there's stress financially. There's stress just in the world. And again, we're living in San Francisco at the time, and I'm still getting cut off, and people are being mean to each other. And given, I would say, our upbringing, my father, a former Marine police officer, physical intervention is kind of a way of being. It's kind of, yeah, we can talk about it, but I'm going to be the person who's going to create space. And so I had a real problem, a really big problem of getting out of cars and confronting people, just confronting people in general. And if you get out of a car in a city, not knowing who is back there, what kind of day they're having, what kind of weapon they have under the seat, it's a really bad thing. And if you have a pregnant woman in the driver's seat, it's a really, 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 really bad thing. Mm-hmm. So there were 2 incidents like that. And Susie said, that can never happen again, or we're done. And you got to take care of yourself. And I want to help you. And it's one of the greatest gifts she or any other human being ever gave to me, because shortly thereafter, I made an appointment with a therapist. And the first time I'd actually been to a therapist when I went to St. Bruno's, but we'll come back to that. That was elementary school I went to, but I did reasonably well in school, and economics is, you take psychology classes with economics. So, and I was a reader, so I've read books on psychology and philosophy and coaching and so forth. So the night before I'm going to see this therapist, Susie asked me, well, what are you going to talk to the therapist about? And Cash is already born at this point. And I said, well, I want to know, I knew it was his position on Irvin Yalom and group existential psychotherapy. I want to know his position on Freud. I want to, I'm just going, I'm like all in my head, right? So next morning, I go to
that's awesome.
I go to see a therapist, write the check, do the paperwork. And I sit across from him, just, 3 feet, nothing in between us. He goes, so how you doing? Just freaking lost it. Yeah, I was just, I couldn't talk. I just started bawling. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening to me right now. Wow. And he said, it's all right. You're safe. And I'm like, I'm safe. I just was more and more like.
Now, let me interrupt you for just a second, because I have to clarify something. I'm still looking for, how did you see yourself at that point? I mean, did you know you were angry, or did you know was it intellect that was driving?
Oh, I wouldn't say I was angry, and I'll get to that in a second, because it wasn't anger, it was lack of safety. So as he was sitting across from me, asking me how you're doing, despite all the great people I had in my life, I don't recall, and I mean this in all sincerity, I do not recall a person up to that point in my life who had been there just for me without any expectation. Granted, I had written him a check to sit in that chair and ask that question,
Right.
but he was like, and again, processing after the fact, he was like the role of the tribal elder. And I still regard therapists in that, in the hustle and bustle of life, like who are the elders and are they accessible? And even when you talk to a grandfather or a wise coach or, whomever, oftentimes they have their own expectations of you, their own hopes for you. And I think that's what's beautiful of a skilled therapist. Is like, it's not about them and their expectations. They're just holding space for you to process. And I was there and I was like, oh my God, I am so longing to be heard. I am so longing to have not only somebody see me, but allow myself to see myself, for this hurt soul, for this person who needs help. Fast forward, I went to anger management, which was a wonderful thing. I can't recommend it enough, particularly for dudes who are scarred. I'm going to talk probably quite a bit about scars because that started me on the journey to self-healing. And that was first acknowledging the abuse that I had had. And again, I don't want to be hyperbolic, I guess might be the word, about abuse, because I think mine is minor compared to others. That being said, I don't want to underplay it either, because it was very hurtful and very formative in how I viewed myself. And that goes to my relationship with my father on soccer fields of East Whittier Junior High, to the baseball fields of Murphy Ranch, to the field at St. Paul High School. It's just that there are scars and habits that I had formed that I had to call out, that I had to process, and that I had to find new ways of being that were going to that I was going to be okay with, and that would make me more resilient and less prone to outbursts. So yeah, it was the start, but yeah, it was like I said, one of the greatest gifts that anyone has ever given me, prodding me to go take that action.
Nice.
This is a very difficult thing for me because you were one of my heroes when I was at St. Paul. I know that sounds weird. I was a freshman, you were a senior, and there wasn't a day that I walked in the den that I didn't, look on the beam, ABC Player of the Week, Alan Adamsen. I swear to God, I mean, I'm not even being. It's not sarcastic. I would like literally walk in, man, and I always like the cut of your jib. I was always watching, and I. This is very shallow compared to what we've been talking about, but I do want the people to know that some of the kids or whatever that, there are people watching, and I was watching you all the time. I wasn't a receiver, but I was like, this guy's different. He's not a meathead. And, we were going through the 80s with all the weird, if you're a football player in an 80s movie, you're a meathead and a jerk. And, I didn't want that. I was a good student. I was pushing against that. And, and I was a public school kid and all that business. But I do, and I've talked about this a couple times with a couple different folks. I'm listening to you talk about some of these things and these scars, and wherever they came from or whatever they were is not part of the question. The question is, would you be the man you are, the successful man, the top 100, this and that? We can say all those crazy words. My thought is that you have to have some of those things. You have to have some of those scars. Even healing from the scars has made you a better man. Yeah. And I'm wondering, do you think that, but then I kind of look at your family and your boy and your daughter, and they're doing all these crazy things, and I'm sure they don't have as many scars as you. So where does those scars play in the development of leadership and the development of a strong man and the development of someone who is well-rounded and can be a citizen, You know what I mean? I don't know if that's a good question or not,
Oh,
but
it's a fantastic question. It's a
I just
fantastic
feel
question.
like it's so important to have some grit, you know, and have some, you know.
I There you go.
Uh-oh. He's gonna give me a reading assignment.
There you go, right there.
There it is.
So yeah. So you want books? We'll go through books.
Okay.
It's a great question, and it's a kind of a societal dilemma, and I see many parents struggling with it and I'm sure it's generational too, because we heard it too, you know, that the football field. It's like, you know, when I was your age, I was a year older, you know, uphill both ways in the snow. It's just like, here's my thinking on that. I don't want to get into a tough guy contest with my kids, my son specifically. I think life is tough enough, and I made a clear decision long ago that I'm going to be part of his support system, and I am going to help smooth out the bumps, and I'm going to model what it is to be a resource, to be empathetic, to be. It doesn't mean I ain't gonna say, you know, my truth, and it doesn't mean I'm not going to challenge him or her. It does mean that I'm not going to be one of those bumps. You know, I'm not going to assault my kids. I'm not going to exacerbate, you know, challenge. I'm going to be on his or her side of the table. And I know in my own experience, as much as I loved my father, I mean, he was, you know, kind of the other side of the table guy. And I know many of our peers, that was the case. You know, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to, you know, and it's like, I didn't want that role. Now, there's this whole entitlement thing, you know, entitlement generation. I think, and I've written papers on multi-generational workforce, and one of the highlights that come out is that we as human beings adapt to the circumstances before us. And so there are certain rules in place around coaching, as you both know, that weren't in place when we were there. So, you know, yeah, we might have been tougher back then because we had to go through more. Because they're not going through more doesn't mean they're, you know, less of, you know, players or less people.
Intelligent, you know, I think less intelligent. That's the quotient that seems to be the run through of all the things, you know, is the intelligence can't be strong in strength. You know, it definitely can, and it probably should be. You know, we can talk a little about that a little bit more with the Positive Coaching Alliance stuff when we get to that. But
I just feel like, Chuck, it's like, you know, when I started coaching, I was on the tail end. You know, if I did something wrong in school and I got pulled up in front of the principal and my mom was there, you know, my mom would whack me in front of the principal. The principal was not wrong. I was wrong. You know, and now as a teacher, you know, I get attacked from parents like my kid can do no wrong. I said, your kid's 15 years old. I'm guessing it's a 50-50 shot here. I mean, you got to give me at least 50 the coin flips chance here to win this argument, you know, or whatever, or explain my story. And you know, I'm just afraid that there's so much of the helicopters and the lawnmower parents and this parent and that, you know, there's not going to be that grit. You know, I kind of thought that maybe COVID would be that, you know, it would be that defining moment in the generation where they could find their grit and they could find their toughness. But there was just this gigantic struggle to make it all normal, and let's make it the best we can, and let's make sure we, you know, I just don't defer to that all the time. My default is not to baby anybody, and you know, I just don't see the value in it. I don't think it's as efficient in my mind. You know, especially like you're talking about building very, very, very independent young people. The two people that's got your name are very independent. They're making their own decisions, and you got to give them the tools. You can't just, okay, I'll be there. You know, I don't know. We might be talking about two different things.
No, I think you're spot on. I think the sentiment of, there's a risk of entitlement, and I struggle with this because, and I'll give you a very concrete example. I pay for my kid's phone. The probability that any of our parents would have paid for our phones back then, zero. It just would not have happened. It just wouldn't happen. I have made a deal with both kids, a little bit nuanced deals that, hey, your job, son, is to focus on your grades and volleyball right now, because that's, where the level of intensity of school, in my view, is far in excess of what it was. And the commitments athletically are heightened as well. And for you to be, driving around and incur that, that level of stress, I don't think it's healthy. And again, my son is a unique person. Now, there can be the argument that, oh, let him work and let him prioritize, let him figure it out. I totally get that. But given the relationship I have with my son and what I deem most appropriate, those two things are enough. Okay. With our daughter, she works damn near full time, and she's the valedictorian person. So I pay for her phone because, she puts in the work, in other ways, and she saves, and now she's investing, and she's doing, other things. So it's not just it is an exchange, and it's clear, and it's revisited. So it's not like it's my hope that they don't take it for granted. And there is a path to get out of this, because it's like, once you're done with school, this is not, or you're done working, we're going to have a different conversation. Right. So where I'll land with all this is that there's a book behind me too called The Happiness Advantage. It's Sean Aker, and he has a fabulous TED Talk. And the number one attribute of happy and successful people in his research was the quality of their support system. And when I first read that, and I was like, and forgive me, I'm not going to cuss again, but I was like, because I looked at my support system and I was like, well, it kind of sucks. And I'm no dissing my friends or family, because it's not only, and this is very important, it's not only the quality of the individuals within that support system and the other systems and processes and structure, but it's the willingness of the individual to access that support system. So one of the things that I want my kids to know is that I'm the leader of their support system. I am, if something goes south or weird, I'm the point person. Not only am I a member of it, and I'm not going to be the point person on it forever. I'm already seeing transitions with both kids, but that's who I am. I'm not the confrontational, going to exacerbate it. Let's not tell dad, because he's just going to get pissed off. And now it's about my expectations, about my feelings. I need to continuously and relentlessly be in service to them. So that's my decision, as a parent. And, right or wrong, they're going to get enough challenges from teachers, coaches, peers. They don't need a challenge, in my view, from their dad.
Nice. Yeah, it's being clear and having those conversations that I used to say, you can coach your DBs to do everything sideways instead of backwards, and if you believe in it enough and can teach it enough, then they'll do it for you, and it's like anything else. Parenting I think has the same kind of connotations that, there's definitely different ways to parent, but you have to be committed, and there's a lot of conversations that have to go on for understanding to be passed down from mature people to immature people and the process to get them there.